Fudo is an ugly loser who gets admitted into a school where all the girls are wary of boys and armed from head to toe. But due to his max aura personality, Fudo manages to win their hearts and is able to clap all the popular baddies of his school after overwhelming them with his martial arts skills. However, before any of this, Fudo arrives at his new school and hopes that he can find some peace in his miserable life. Elsewhere, Rin and the other 4 girls are present in a room to discuss an important matter. According to Rin, an enemy has entered their school. On the other hand, Fudo is surprised to see every girl armed to the teeth. Mary informs the girls that Fudo was expelled from his previous school after causing a brawl. But it wasn't anything ordinary, as he injured 40 people. Amongst them, he was injured the most, and Rin doubts that he is trained by Master Oogway. Warabi mentions that doing such things with only his wrists makes Fudo a threat, and her pet dog starts acting up, making Satori want to pet it. Elsewhere, Fudo runs into a cross-dressing freak and mentions how he looks like a giant Buddha statue. After struggling not to call the fatty weird names, he gets to know that all the boys at their school are forced to act freaky, and if he does the same, he might be granted the smallest bit of freedom they have. However, Fudo lets the fatty know that he won't be indulging in such activities. At the same time, Kurukuru pays the girl a visit, and Mary gets annoyed by her arrogant attitude. Warabi wonders if she has already fought Fudo, and Kurukuru agrees. But Rin comments that Fudo will be joining her class, and she will be the one who corrects him and his attitude. After talking to his teachers, Fudo arrives at his class and finds Rin in front of him. They all instantly point their swords at him, saying that he isn't aware of his place. Fudo replies that he has no idea why the boys are acting creep or what the Supreme Five is. Another girl lets him know that the Supreme Five that is led by Rin controls the school. This school used to be a girls-only school, but eventually became co-education, and the girls armed themselves to stay safe from the weirdos lurking around. The Supreme Five were successful, and now delinquents are sent to this school to be reformed. Rin includes that it is standard for the Supreme Five to correct a transfer student like him. The fatty, on the other hand, wonders if Fudo finally understands what he told him. But Fudo argues that he is unarmed, and they still want to come after him. Rin replies that she will be the only one correcting him and asks if he can take all of them if he were armed. However, all Fudo does is tease them even more, and in the end, Rin tells him to either coexist with them or leave the school. Eventually, Fudo comes up with an answer and replies that he'd choose the third option, which is for them to scram. He further mentions that leaving the school would be boring, so he'll just have some fun. But Rin is confident that she can correct his behavior before the bell rings. But her plan fails, as Fudo starts off by smelling a girl's plot and jumping off the window after revealing its colors to other girls.
Yeah, boy.
The whale realizes why Fudo was admitted to this school, but also knows that he can't have freedom and a quiet life at the same time at this school. Meanwhile, Rin begins running after Fudo, saying that boys need permission before leaving the school grounds. Tsukuyo asks her classmate to open the window as she wants to hear the commotion as well. She manages to cut his tie, and Fudo keeps on dodging her attacks and tries kicking her, but Rin blocks it. Following that, she compliments Fudo for having great reflexes and that he has trained a lot despite having natural talent. Fudo suggests they stop fighting and mentions how a shorty with muscles like hers aligns with his type. Nonetheless, Rin decides to use mirrored breathing, and Tsukuyo contemplates that Rin is going all out, as mirrored breathing allows her to focus her will to strengthen her immobilized core, drawing forth power surpassing her physical abilities. Luckily, Fudo keeps on blocking all of Rin's strikes using his legs, and she eventually strikes his chest. She runs at him to strike again, but Fudo dodges it and tries tackling her, but it doesn't work. She strikes him once again and successfully cuts his face. Now that his ugly face is made even uglier by Rin, Fudo takes out his secret gloves and begins fighting back, blocking her strikes with his hands. Warabi, who is watching, figures that Fudo is trying to block her attacks using the back of his hand and pushing her away with his palms. The battle continues, and the girls are getting anxious as homeroom is about to end. Rin is able to corner Fudo and keeps on striking him repeatedly. Fortunately, he manages to get away and uses this chance to touch a baddie for the first time. Rin lets him know that touching her with such weak force won't do him any good. Just then, Fudo toughens up his body and strikes her using his full force, surprising everyone else as Rin is sent flying. She tries grabbing her sword, but Fudo holds her hand and blocks when she tries to punch. He then pins her down to the ground, and another girl stomps Fudo on the head, causing him to lock lips with the pure maiden. Fudo freaks out and starts blaming the emo girl. Rin gets up and swears on her life that she will cut his ding-dong.
Damn!
Nano is present in the bathroom where Mary pays her a visit. Nano thinks that it's time for the group to bathe and begins packing her stuff. Mary asks her about Rin and mentions that she must be in distress after being pinned down and receiving a kiss from Fudo's dry lips. She decides to be the one who corrects Fudo, but Chauka intervenes, saying that as Mary's younger sister, she will take care of the whole matter. Meanwhile, Fudo notices that his foot is swelling due to the fight and tells the whale that his special move is something he came up with and spent most of his childhood perfecting it. He then wonders how one can leave the school grounds, and the fatty replies that he needs a permission slip from Rin that needs to be stamped by all the other Supreme 5 members. However, their impression of him is as low as it can get and it'll be hard to acquire that slip. Luckily, he can still write the things he wants and they will be supplied to him in a few hours. Furthermore, if he wants to get his hands on some cultured stuff, a smuggler amongst the male students can get it for him. The next day, Fudo appears in class with a box of cake, but all the girls are wary of Fudo as he might kiss them. He then asks the girl with purple plot armor about Rin, but when she refuses to tell him, he is forced to ask a tomboy who lets him know that Rin has a fever and is lying in bed. After that, he asks Masuko about the girls' dorm and decides to go and take a look. Elsewhere, Rin wakes up from a wet dream and starts thinking about Fudo, which makes her extremely furious. However, she still seems to like the sensation of being pinned down by him and thinks that he should be grateful for getting his hands on a cutie like her. Just then, Rin smells something rotten and at the same time, Fudo appears inside her room. She tries attacking, but he blocks it and checks her temperature, making Rin flustered. Fudo then gives her the cake and says that she looks much better without the mask. This makes him wonder why she wears one in the first place, and Rin replies that it's embarrassing for her to go out without one. He then asks one for himself as well, but Rin replies that only Sigmas like her get one. Getting to the point, Fudo tells Rin that he'd like to see her in ordinary clothes, making her think that he wants to go outside with her. The maiden with zero interactions with boys gets embarrassed and gives him the slip.
That was easy.
Rin is sure that the slip makes up for Fudo paying her a visit, but when he mentions the kiss, she faints out of shyness, and while trying to grab her, Fudo breaks her shirt button. Just then, Nano enters the room and seeing Fudo looking at her shiny melons, she puts the dorm on lockdown, which causes Fudo to run for his life while dodging all the traps. Elsewhere, Chowka notices Fudo running and decides to whip him into shape. Fudo mocks her for having longer hair than her body. She then introduces herself by telling Fudo her overly complicated name, and Nano mentions that she only pretends to be Italian when she's really just a Japanese girl.
Emotional damage!
Furthermore, Nano argues that she has the higher ranking as she's the younger sister of Rin, but according to Chowka, it'll change when she defeats Fudo and increases Mary's reputation. With that being said, Chowka strikes him with a whip and Nano tries landing an attack as well, forcing Fudo to put on his gloves to take them on. Nano manages to block Fudo's hand and goes for the spot where the sun doesn't shine, making him realize she follows the same stance as Rin. Chowka also begins swinging her whip around, letting Fudo know that they are the Junior Supreme 5. Additionally, only one person has made it through a two-man correction, and that is the goth girl Kurukuru. Fudo wonders who that is, and they inform him that she is also a female delinquent who came to the school just before he did. Nonetheless, both of them are about to attack Fudo, but he manages to tangle Nano in Chowka's whip. This allows him to hit Nano with his magical bullets, causing her to go flying and crash into Chowka. He then begins walking towards them, making the girls think that he might kiss them. Having no other choice, the two of them begin crying, which makes the spectator look at Fudo as a creep. Satori, who is watching the fight, realizes that Fudo messed with Chowka and her older sister isn't going to let it slide. Later, on his way back from school, Fudo runs into Rin, who gives him the permission slip, and he walks away after thanking her. Elsewhere, Mary is taking a bath and is furious at Fudo for what he did to her sister. The next day, Fudo finds Rin back in her normal furious form, and she decides to be the one who supervises him from now on. Chowka pays Mary a visit, who is eating dinner to prepare for tomorrow's correction, while Rin decides not to let Fudo lay a finger on any of the other 5 swords. Mary also finds out about him being under Rin's supervision and can't accept this fact as he is apparently her prey. Meanwhile, Fudo is enjoying his food while reading the latest magazines. Masuko asks Fudo to hide his bum and mentions that because he messed with Mary's sister, she is after him and is a whole lot crueler than Rin. Fudo asks him about the person who survived both of these girls, and the fatty remembers Kurukuru's fight. He also recognizes the person Masuko is talking about and wonders if she transferred to this school as well. The next morning, Rin comes to pick Fudo up for school, and when he begins explaining about what happened the other day, Rin replies that the 5 swords don't believe in rumors and it is natural for her to supervise a woman-hungry beast like him. She then checks his bag and Fudo questions if she will keep on following him, to which Rin agrees. Just then, Mary along with her henchman appears, telling Rin that she is going easy on Fudo. She further blames Fudo for trampling through the girls' dorm, contaminating their space and laying his dirty hands on her little sister. This makes Fudo complain to Rin about the rumors, and she lets Mary know that it's a misunderstanding and he did no such thing. She further reassures Mary that she will be taking care of Fudo from now on. However, Mary doesn't like this idea and blames Rin for acting strange ever since she got a taste of him. Eventually, Rin asks Fudo to go ahead while she deals with Mary, to which he agrees and leaves. She then tells Mary to stay away from Fudo, but when she refuses, both of them end up drawing their weapons. While the two girls begin battling each other, Chowker runs after Fudo and begins striking him with her whip, but he confronts her using his belt, not realizing that his pants came off in the process. Seeing his tiny little thing makes her faint. While Fudo hurriedly fixes his pants, he notices Kurukuru looking at him from afar. On the other hand, Rin ends up losing to Mary because she is still recovering from her illness and can't do anything but watch her walk away. Meanwhile, Kurukuru tells Fudo to come back later as she also has to prepare herself for battle. She also lets him know that she has always been a woman, and as soon as Fudo begins running at her, Mary shouts at Fudo for running around with his meat swinging around. He then gives her a perfect view of it, and Mary notices her sister in trauma due to the thing she just saw. By that time, Kurukuru leaves while Mary gets ready to make Fudo ball. Elsewhere, Kurukuru appears in front of the Buddha statue and remembers when she met Fudo for the first time, and after their fight, asked him to become her subordinate. Back in the present, she wonders why she didn't eliminate him when her strike was powerful enough to do so, and decides to waste him the next time she sees him. At the same time, Mary begins throwing attacks at Fudo and manages to stab his hand. He figures that his gloves are good at deflecting sword attacks but can't do much against stabbing attacks as he doesn't know anything about Western swordplay. She then stabs his neck and follows it by stabbing a few other body parts. From that point, he manages to dodge a few of her attacks and gets stabbed once again in his back. Mary figures that if she keeps at it, Fudo won't be able to attack her. On the other hand, Rin comes up to Chowka and doesn't understand shit when Chowka tries to tell her their location. In the end, she makes a blind guess and follows it. Fudo makes the same attack and gets stabbed on his back this time as well. Mary mocks him by saying that even a chimpanzee learns faster than him. Moreover, Tsukuyo figures that Mary is aiming for areas where nerves are concentrated, resulting in his movement slowing down. Additionally, she finds out that Rin is going in the complete opposite direction. Having no other choice, Fudo runs at Mary, and even though he gets stabbed, his adult magazine protects him. He uses it to smack Mary on the head, later strengthens his body, and uses all of his powers to hit Mary with magic bullets, making her crash onto the ground. He then flames her for sticking by the rules of fencing, and she tells him to end her life as nothing is more disappointing than being defeated by a filthy animal. However, Fudo completely ignores her, which makes Mary wonder if he will be going down on her just like he did with Rin, but he refuses. Hearing his reply disappoints her as she thinks that Fudo finds Rin more charming than her. Furthermore, if he did all those things to Rin, her little sister, and Nano while leaving her out of the fun, it'd be pretty humiliating. In the end, she begins forcing him to grab a melon or two, but he denies it once again. Before leaving, Fudo asks her to stamp his slip, and she reveals the stamp that is buried between her plot. He almost gets a feel but forces himself to stop, making Mary realize that not all men are scums and some value their own morals over their desires as well. Just then, Rin appears and gets furious after seeing her exposed rack, but Mary clears up the misunderstanding. Furthermore, she agrees to give him the stamp and decides to join Rin's supervising team, resulting in the Badas fighting over him. Fudo is enjoying his lunch while the two girls stare at him. He lets them know that their plots are visible, making them embarrassed. At the same time, Warabi returns from her trip to Hawaii and notices Rin and Mary attacking Fudo, realizing she needs to be the one who corrects him. At her office, she is pissed at the two of them for befriending a target for correction, and she decides to add both Rin and Mary to the list of those who require correction. She then asks Satori about her thoughts, and she is forced to agree as Warabi is a senior member of the Supreme Five. Later, everyone witnesses the whale tied up to a cross, and when Fudo is about to help, Rin stops him as she smells something fishy about the whole situation. Just then, Warabi reveals herself and confronts them for disturbing the peace of this school. She then reveals a festival she came up with, and its main focus will be Fudo. He then asks Warabi about Masuko's situation, and she replies that he helped Fudo bring cake inside their school. Furthermore, she lets him know that if he manages to clear all of her challenges, her stamp will be as good as his. When Rin asks Warabi about her intentions, she replies that it was decided by the Supreme Five and reveals her three musketeers, who let them know that they are third years and rank higher than these two based on their years alone. They are allowed to participate in this contest and will be their opponents. Rin gets frustrated as all this happened behind her back, but Warabi argues that while she was gone, the two of them stayed by Fudo's side, trying to get inside his pants. However, Rin and Mary reply that all they were doing was supervising him, making the two of them fight each other as well. To start things off, Warabi makes a sumo ring appear, and the girls let Fudo know that they need to win the starting rounds as Warabi will be fighting them in the end, and winning against her is pretty hard. Apparently, she did similar games in the past, and the target had his rice cakes lit on fire, damaging half of the school building. Warabi then gives them sumo belts, and Fudo begins stripping down but is told that he can just put them over his clothes. Suddenly, the little sisters appear and try to take down the musketeers but end up failing miserably. Before they get seriously injured, Rin and Mary stop the fight, letting the little sisters know that the decision of the council is final and not even they can stop it. In the meantime, Fudo successfully manages to put on his sumo belt and the girls take him to a corner to make him help with theirs as well. He starts off by asking Rin to spread her plot and begins putting on the sumo belt. The creep makes sure to touch as many spots as he can and make the belt as tight as possible. In the end, he asks her to sit down and the tightness makes the poor girl tear up. Now that she's done, Mary tries to go and ask for someone else's help, but Rin makes sure she goes through the same. After they are done, Mary seems furious that Fudo spent more time tying Rin's belt as compared to her and questions Fudo if he has some sort of hidden kink. Warabi makes sure to broadcast the fight and the camerawoman zooms into the girl's peaches. With that being said, Fudo enters the ring and calls out the girl who is going to be his opponent, but it turns out that he will be fighting Warabi's pet bear. Warabi reassures him that her bear is as gentle as Winnie the Pooh, but the chain around its neck says otherwise. Rin argues that putting a human against a non-human is against the rules, and Warabi says that if even one of them can defeat the bear, she'll let them off the hook. In the end, Fudo decides to take the bear on, saying that he hasn't lost a single sumo match when Rin is well aware that he's capping. Soon after, both of them get into stance, and even though Fudo is shitting his pants, he can't let a threat slide. Just as the battle starts, both of them run toward each other and Fudo tries hitting it with his magic bullet, but it doesn't work on the bear. He then hits a magic bullet on the bear's back, but it doesn't affect it much. The bear then tries attacking, but Fudo dodges it and stomps the bear's feet. He then uses this chance to try and pick the bear up using his belt. The girls are surprised and advise him to let go or he'd be crushed, but Fudo refuses. Just when he is about to throw him out of the circle, Fudo notices something and puts the bear down. He then thanks whoever put the belt on the bear as it falls apart, making him the victor of this battle. Both the girls are overjoyed, and Fudo suggests keeping up the winning streak. This results in both Rin and Mary reluctantly agreeing to work together and fist-bumping Fudo. Meanwhile, Warabi faints due to the sudden shock and tells her henchmen to prepare for the next round as she won't be going easy anymore. Suddenly, all the henchmen disappear and Warabi makes an announcement, congratulating Fudo on doing a great job and letting him know that the festival is over. As promised, she will be giving him his stamp only if he manages to come to the building roof on his own. Additionally, the camerawomen are still broadcasting their rice cakes. Warabi further reveals that this game is called Red Paper Tower, where on each level, one of her henchmen will be waiting for Fudo's arrival. That's not all, as 10 other girls will be assisting them as well. Suddenly, the bum broadcast ends as the girls take care of the camerawomen and Rin lets Fudo know that it's a trap. He already made it through her games and there is no need to go along with Warabi's ideas any further. But Fudo replies that he needs to accept her invitation as he needs the cross-dressing whale to make things interesting along with the stamp she has. But as he starts walking on his own, Mary stops him and mentions that they need to supervise him along with the fact that he should probably get rid of the sumo belt. After he is finished changing, Fudo is waiting for the girls to be done and accidentally opens the door, witnessing Badas in their plot armor. He instantly closes the door and gets slapped by their little sisters. After punishing the creep, they figure out that their older sisters will be going to the roof as well and want Fudo to relay their message to them. Later, the little sisters enter the building while their sisters confront Fudo for not stopping them, and he advises them to believe in their sisters. He then suggests taking another route to go and meet Warabi while the sisters are fighting when suddenly, a door breaks open and Satori appears in front of them. She slowly walks towards them, commenting on how she is free to do whatever she wants. Elsewhere, Warabi notices some girls freeing the fatty when suddenly, Fudo appears in front of her along with Mary and Rin. He then notices Masuko getting rescued but doesn't recognize his helpers. Warabi confronts them for coming to the roof despite her not summoning them, making her wonder if Fudo has already popped their cherries. When Rin disagrees, Warabi questions their reason for taking his side, but before they can reply, Fudo lets Warabi know that if she loses, he will make them wear sumo belts and broadcast their flat bums on all the school TVs. Just when the girls take out their weapons, the bear appears out of nowhere as well. Mary decides to fight with Warabi's underlings, leaving Rin and Fudo to deal with the grizzly woman. Rin figures that Warabi's style is to let her bear fight while she chills at the back, but luckily, Rin isn't scared of a mere bear. Fudo mentions how everyone knows a bear's weak point and tries following them, only to get punched in the face. Mary appears in front of the henchmen, suggesting they make the fight entertaining. Warabi tells Fudo that the bear has been training his boxing skills and their fight continues. Rin uses this chance to attack Warabi only to get counterattacked as she reminds Rin that she is obviously stronger than the beast she employs. Furthermore, she mentions that the techniques she uses are ninjutsu and tsukuyo. Using her great hearing skills, figures that Warabi dodged Rin's attack by spinning like a top and attacking her unprotected back. A fight continues and Warabi blocks Rin's horizontal slash, and Rin also barely dodges her attempt to stab her. Following that, Rin once again dodges Warabi trying to tackle and kicks her on the peaches. Meanwhile, Fudo's fight with the bear also continues and he manages to land magic bullets, only to get cornered by the bear later on. The henchmen also start working together to throw nuts and bolts at Mary. Rin lets Warabi know that she will be correcting her, but Warabi argues that all she is doing is dealing with enemy outsiders, which is what the Supreme Five do. Rin reminds herself not to get distracted by her words. Warabi further says that she is in the right as Rin, who used to terrorize men, suddenly stopped and turned her sword against her allies. Just then, Fudo talks to both Mary and Rin, advising them to stop overthinking and not lose focus, reminding them that he hasn't thanked them. This helps the girl regain their focus, and Fudo acts as if he will hit magic bullets, making the bear protect its stomach, allowing Fudo to punch it in the face. Mary also lunges at the girls in order to fight them in close quarters, while Rin manages to land a solid attack on Warabi, which she calls the Kashima hidden technique. Later, the little sisters arrive and find that they have taken care of Warabi as well. Fudo finally thanks the girls for their help and asks them to assist him in tying the sumo belt on Warabi, as it'll be much easier with the three of them. But they refuse to take part in his evil plans and begin chasing him, and Warabi can't do anything but smile at them. Rin is looking at her new mask and remembers when Fudo called her cute. She then asks Nano if it's better to just wear the broken mask, and she joyously agrees. Meanwhile, Mary sprays some Dior Sauvage on herself and gets complimented by Chowka. Later, the two of them are pissed at all the girls thirsting over Fudo as they find his performance at Warabi's games commendable. Following that, all the girls are staring at him during class as well, and Rin lands a kick on him for not paying attention to what the teacher has to say. A whole lot of girls are gathered outside his classroom as well, and Mary makes sure to clear the area. The girls keep on following him wherever he goes, which makes the two girls confused even more. Fudo is then on his way to have lunch, and Mary along with Rin decides to accompany him. During lunch, he notices their burning aura as they let Fudo know that if they didn't stop the girls, all of them would rush at him all at once. Rin tells Fudo not to let it get to his head, and he complains about the face they are making as it hides their cute features. Eventually, school ends and he walks away, making Rin disappointed as he didn't notice her new uniform, while Mary feels the same way about her perfume. At the same time, Warabi has been stalking them and figures that Fudo isn't your average Tokyo Revenger-inspired delinquent. At home, Rin and Mary are eating dinner while complaining about Fudo's newly formed popularity, regretting giving him their stamps so easily. Mary suggests that they should correct him once and for all, to which Rin hesitantly agrees. Elsewhere, Fudo gets goosebumps due to their convo and decides to experience his long relaxing wet dreams, refusing to wash his disgusting body when the cow asks him to. The next morning, he mentions that the girls are late as he woke up super early today. Fudo then notices Rin's new perfume and tells Mary that she went to her old perfume as the new one wasn't that good to begin with. Before he walks away, the girls stop him for his daily inspection, deciding to correct him tomorrow. While checking his stuff, Rin finds something that makes her cry out of anger, and when Mary takes a look, she gets furious at him as well. Turns out they found a picture of him getting freaky with Satori. However, Fudo doesn't have any memory of this event, but the girls couldn't care less and begin attacking him while he runs for his life. He eventually runs into the school building and bumps into Warabi's bear. The girls also arrive and walk away after only seeing Warabi in the hallway. Turns out he hid behind the bear's big bum, surprising Warabi as he won her bear's heart. He then informs Warabi about the whole situation and she begins laughing, telling Fudo that Satori is damaging his relationship with those two, as fighting the three of them would be difficult for her. She then wonders if Fudo has some sort of plan, to which he replies that he didn't had his meet up, along with the fact that light rays were covering her plot. With that being said, he decides to steal the original file by sneaking into the girls' dorm, but Warabi mentions that if he is found out, the girls will throw him in the cell. This results in an idea popping into his mind, and at night, Fudo gets beaten by the girls until they rip his shirt, exposing the scars on his back and making them stop. After they leave, Warabi pays him a visit and brings a loaf of bread for him. Apparently, it was his plan all along to let the girls take him inside the dorm, which will be possible if he lets them catch him. This resulted in her shouting Fudo's name, grabbing the attention of Rin and Mary. Back in the present, the bear gives Fudo a lick, and Warabi mentions that her bear doesn't want anything bad happening to him. Furthermore, Satori isn't in her room at the moment, which makes it a perfect chance to sneak in. After sneaking into Satori's room, the two of them can't seem to find any evidence, and Warabi figures that she must have given it to one of the masked girls, but it's hard to point one out specifically. On their way back, Fudo accidentally sets out a trap and then runs into his classmates. but Fudo manages to hide behind the bear, unknowingly grabbing the bear's melons. He gets buried further into them, making the bear make happy noises until it falls. Luckily, Warabi covers up by sitting in front of him and the girls get distracted by the little bear cub in front of them. Following that, she confronts him for messing up and lets him know that her bear is the mother of that cub. Fudo jokes about almost invading another man's territory and the bear accidentally triggers a trap. Fortunately, Fudo manages to stop it, saving the bear and receiving licks on his face as a reward. Later, the two of them go through Satori's undies to find evidence and notice her missing sword. Suddenly, one of the masked girls appears and shoots a dart, but Warabi takes the hit, saving Fudo from it. Simultaneously, Satori also comes out of the bath and is surprised to see Warabi working with Fudo, mentioning how people really are unpredictable. Fudo is shocked seeing Satori bring her sword into the bath and seeing her lock it. He remembers everything. The masked girl shoots again, but Fudo manages to catch it this time. He figures that someone was stalking him yesterday, and it was the masked girl who took the chance and slipped him a Mickey. But Satori disagrees with her being the only one, as Masuko was helping her all along. Last night, the two of them sneaked into his room and he made him eat a pill via a kiss, causing him to pass out. In the present, she knows that Fudo is after the original Data. Elsewhere, Mary is getting wasted on grape juice while continuously bad-mouthing Fudo for giving into Satori's flatness. Shouka mentions that he must be after Mary's body as well, which reminds her how Fudo controlled himself. At the same time, Rin is also calling Fudo every cuss word she is aware of. Nano also reminds her of when Fudo forcefully kissed her, making Rin stop as she decides to go to bed. Meanwhile, Garlock the Destroyer finds Fudo's slip and steals it. Fudo questions Satori's intentions, to which she replies that she finds him annoying. With that being said, the two of them prepare for battle as Fudo puts on his gloves. Satori suggests they fight inside the bathing area and refuses to hide her embarrassingly small talents. This results in Fudo's lil bro acting up, making Warabi kick him into the bathing area. She decides to fight the masked girl but realizes that the juice on the dart is starting to affect her. However, she manages to fix it by stabbing herself and awakening all her senses. Meanwhile, Fudo gets jealous seeing the girl's bath and Satori is about to ask Fudo something but attacks him in the midst of it. She notices that he did a good job blocking the strike with his hand and starts off by cutting his face. He then decides to go for her locket, but she tackles and stabs him in the back instead. He realizes that her facial expression doesn't change and he can't figure out her move by seeing her body, as he'll just get distracted. Fudo then lets Satori know that her creepy eyes make her look like a monster, but Satori is already aware of it as her parents roasted her the same way, seeing her ugly face. Her father was angry while her mother started crying, but all it did was confuse her. She then begins attacking him once again and Fudo manages to get away only with a little scratch on his face. Following that, she goes for his feet and then targets his back again, but Fudo manages to escape, which makes her mock Fudo for not figuring her out. On the other hand, Warabi is having trouble fighting due to the poison in her body and realizes that she has been poisoned once again, as there was some of it on the mouthpiece of her weapon as well. Her condition starts to worsen, but she cuts herself and puts on a brave face to trick the enemy. Fudo gets slashed on his back again and figures that Satori is using a mixture of all the sword teaching. Eventually, he figures that she is using Keishi school's art as they take one technique from 10 separate schools. Satori compliments him for getting the correct answer and as a reward, decides to use a special attack on him. Warabi is also reaching her limit and whatever attack she makes always falls short. Fudo notices that Satoshi is holding her sword differently as she begins attacking him with multiple strikes and one of them cuts his arm. She then mentions that there are many more attacks left for her to show him and continues attacking, but Fudo manages to dodge all of them. He realizes that Satori's movements are getting slower and gets an idea, which results in him taking off his clothes and exposing his little peanut. Satori wonders what this is supposed to mean and gets even more angry. However, Fudo manages to grab her hand and says that even though she is a monster, there is still some humanity inside her and there is only one way a girl acts after seeing a peanut, making her emotionless eyes useless. Meanwhile, Warabi also grabs her hand and both of them slam their opponents onto the ground. Warabi gets her hand on the masked girl's weapon and beats her to a pulp with it. At the same time, Sakuyo is on her way to the bath as she hears everything going on. After defeating the girl, Warabi removes her mask and gets shocked. Satori threatens Fudo by dangling the data over the bathtub. Fudo replies by taking off his glove and slapping her on the face, saying that if he'd be expelled, he might as well leave with no regrets. Satori wonders if Fudo is this mad because he got framed, but he replies that it is because she made Rin cry. This results in Satori laughing and mentioning what a great reply it is, finding humans interesting. Fudo also says that Satori isn't a monster as she got angry at the end of the battle as well, making her blush. Fudo wakes in the infirmary with Satori and the bear next to him. She lets him know that he should leave the girls' dorm as soon as possible without causing a scene. He asks her about Warabi and Satori replies that she is sleeping next to him. Apparently, Satori earlier pulled Fudo into the bath after hearing some movement outside. Warabi's henchmen came to get her and one of them got their hand grabbed when they tried removing the mask of that girl. Luckily, Tsukuyo's lackey knocked her out and Tsukuyo asked her to examine the girls who had passed out. The lackey mentioned that Warabi was poised the same way as her bear, but her midget-sized body made the dose more lethal. Tsukuyo then walked inside the bath where Satori tried telling her that she was alone. Even though she is aware that Fudo is present, all Tsukuyo does is inform Satori about what happened to Warabi and the masked girl along with asking her to have a private conversation later. But when Satori asked to speak right now, Tsukuyo refused and walked away. Fudo eventually comes out of hiding and Satori mentions that he was lucky she hit him as if he were to fight the baddie with big ears. He'd lose his life for sure. However, he refuses to listen and starts walking away, but all the beating and the fight catches up to him and Fudo ends up fainting. Elsewhere, Rin can't sleep as she keeps thinking about Fudo and decides to go and talk to him as she hasn't heard his side of the story. Outside, she runs into Mary who is thinking the same. However, they refuse to tell each other their real intentions and end up heading to the cafeteria to cover up their plans. They both begin to think of ideas to make the other one go back to their room when suddenly, the little sisters appear, wondering if they are going to the punishment room, which both of them deny. Now they have 3 more people to worry about and all they can do is keep on wasting time by chugging more and more tea. Eventually, both of them reach their limits and their little sisters begin forcing them to go back when Satori appears out of nowhere, informing them that Fudo is at the infirmary as he attacked her in the bathing room. After reminding him of everything, Fudo gets why he is in such a state and Satori mentions that to the outside. It seemed like the girls overdid it, which made Satori and Warabi carry him to the infirmary and fight each other afterward. Elsewhere, Tsukuyo ends up in a fever as she ends up sleeping outside while waiting for Satori. After putting on his clothes, Fudo asks Satori if she is alright, to which she replies that her eardrum ruptured after receiving that slap, along with the fact that she informed the other girls about how he attacked her. Suddenly, Rin enters the room and walks straight toward Fudo, but instead of hitting him, she bows down and apologizes as Satori told her the truth and was just messing with Fudo. Furthermore, she witnesses Fudo's meat and begins crying out of disappointment. Satori also steps outside and notices the whale wearing her mask. Rin once again apologizes for doing all of that when he wasn't at fault and gives him permission to punish her however he wants. He asks her to close her eyes and she agrees, thinking that the creep might grab a melon or two, but he ends up removing her mask. This makes her tear up and says that she'd rather have him look at her stripped. Fudo begins to wonder why she hides her face all the time and Rin lets him know that her mother called her ugly. Apparently, her dad cheated on her mom and because of that, her mother made Fudo wear a mask as her face resembled her father's. At the same time, Warabi is holding her pee as it isn't really a good time to interfere. Furthermore, Fudo was the first person to compliment her face, which made her quite happy. At first, Fudo thought about smashing it, but now he wants her to do it herself whenever she feels comfortable. He is glad that Rin still loves her mother but says that he isn't like her. Turns out he is an orphan who was raised by an old man who put him through training every day. Meanwhile, Warabi can't hold it in anymore and tries to think of happy moments, but hearing Fudo's sad story shatters her imagination. The bear provides her with a bucket which she doesn't appreciate. Rin begins bawling after hearing his story and Fudo tells her that trading secrets is the best way to keep them safe. Mary also appears, making Warabi even more frustrated. She apologizes for doing those terrible things and instantly takes off her clothes, allowing him to do whatever he wants, but Rin yells at her to have some shame. After returning to his room, the cow asks Fudo if he doesn't have anything to say to him and wonders what he thinks about him. This question creeps Fudo out and all he says is that his body takes up a lot of space. Masuko replies that he is a terrible person, to which Fudo replies that he only did that to protect the other boys of the dorm and a thoughtful guy like that isn't terrible. Masuko then asks him to check his pillowcase where Fudo finds his slip which has Satori's stamp on it. Fudo is dreaming about when he is embarrassed by Kurukuru and wakes up. Meanwhile, the boys are taking a shower when they notice a weird creature stalking their stripped bodies. They then inform Fudo about how the creature was just a woman's head with long hair. However, they decide not to take them seriously, and just when Fudo is about to go back to sleep, he hears Rin screaming at him to come out. Before heading out, Masuko hands him over his slip and the boys are surprised to see all the stamps he has. Elsewhere, Tsukuyo informs another girl about Kurukuru's recent behavior and how she has increased the amount of carbohydrates in her diet to pump up those guns. After receiving this information, that girl orders not to conduct any classes that day. Meanwhile, Satori is hanging out on the rooftop, staring at her questionable picture with Fudo when someone appears. Fudo asks where Mary is and Rin replies that she is busy at the girls' dorm as many things have gone missing, including the bear's little cub. Warabi is busy looking for the cub along with her 3 musketeers but can't seem to find it. She mentions that they shouldn't make a big deal out of it, as if Satori were to find out about it, she'd treat the cub like a stuffed animal and be much too rough with him. Nonetheless, she asks her lackeys to expand the search area while Mary runs up to Rin and Fudo, asking for their help in searching for her little sister's wig. This surprised them, finding out that her blonde hair was actually a wig. Elsewhere, the person who visits Satori is actually the masked girl, and Nano also asks Tsukuyo about the wig, but she is unaware of its location as well. At the same time, Mary hears Warabi talking about something with hair, making her think she is discussing the missing wig. Hearing her use all the difficult idioms in her speech makes the Italian even more confused. Just then, Fudo appears along with Warabi, and Mary thanks her for working so hard for that little girl, making Warabi think she is talking about her bear. However, they eventually realize that they are searching for 2 different things and begin fighting each other as to what takes priority. Suddenly, an idea pops into Fudo's rat-sized brain, and he appears in the boys' bathroom where he is kicked out. Luckily, the cub comes flying at him as well, wearing Chauka's wig. Following that, Chauka comes out without wearing her wig and questions about it. Fudo lets her know that it's ruined as the bear had a little too much fun with it. Rin advises them to get ready for school, but Nano informs her that the class is cancelled as Kurukuru went missing. Hearing her name makes Fudo realize that the girl he fought and Kurukuru really are the same person. At the rooftop, Satori tells the masked girl, Misogi, to calm down and slaps her for not listening. Just then, Kurukuru appears, saying that she'd rather be feared than loved, but Satori is a monster who is both. She further mentions that Satori finds a place where she can look down on others. Kurukuru shows her another copy of that picture and lets her know that in the midst of making new enemies, Satori has provoked the wrong person. Satori begins laughing, wondering what Fudo would say at this moment. Warabi also talks about the relationship between Misogi and Satori being complicated, along with the fact that Kurukuru left her room. Suddenly, she notices the girls on the rooftop and jumps on top of her bear to head there as well. Meanwhile, Satori asks Kurukuru to let her go but uses this chance to attack her, only to get counter-attacked by Kurukuru. She falls to the ground, and before Kurukuru can strike again, Misogi shoots a dart at her which does nothing. At the same time, Warabi is running towards the rooftop, thinking about how she made sure to keep watch on Kurukuru, but she still slipped through. At the rooftop, Kurukuru is about to finish off Satori, but Misogi ends up taking the hit. Kurukuru tastes the blood and figures that these 2 are sisters. This reminds Satori of when she was a kid and liked high places, as she got to look down on her sister. But one day, Misogi appeared on top as well, and when Satori tried pushing her away, Misogi threw her down. Since then, Misogi acted like she was Satori, and even her mother thought Misogi was Satori, even though Misogi stole everything from Satori. Seeing her lying down injured made Satori furious, only to get struck by Kurukuru. Just then, Warabi appears, and Kurukuru says that Warabi made things easier as now she doesn't have to go and look for her. With that being said, Warabi and the bear begin working together to take her on, only to get injured while Kurukuru remains unscratched. Elsewhere, Fudo is hanging out with Masuko and notices Tsukuyo. Masuko warns him, but he ignores the warning and begins walking towards her, only to find Tsukuyo's blade against his neck. Seeing the blade on his neck, Fudo steps back and falls onto the ground. Tsukuyo then lets him know that her blade won't stop for him one more time. Apparently, the headmistress entrusted her with his case and allowed her 2 transgressions, but he has already surpassed that limit by first breaking into the girls' dorm to meet Rin and then breaking into Satori's room to steal the data. Furthermore, he also ignored her summons, causing her to catch a cold. Tsukuyo is angrier about him breaking into the girls' dorm, as her attendant is responsible for managing the dorm and all the responsibilities fall on her. Fudo wonders why a little girl like her is in charge of him, and just then, she eliminates a butterfly while saying that she is stronger than him. He wonders why she slashed the butterfly, to which she replies that the flapping sound they make irritates her and she can't tell the difference between a moth and a butterfly. This makes Fudo realize that Tsukuyo is most likely blind, but her excellent hearing abilities make up for it. Furthermore, she talks about the attack she just made, which was too fast to be seen by the human eye. Even though she is impressed by Fudo's ability to be able to see that attack, Tsukuyo is disappointed at the same time, as his skills with a sword are falling apart. Surprisingly, she instantly figures that Fudo has learned sword skills, as she saw him fighting against a sword barehanded. Elsewhere, the bear tries attacking Kurukuru when she uses her different hand movements to stab it in the guts, making Warabi scream, which is heard by Fudo. As Kurukuru moves towards her, one of her lackeys tries to assist, only to get stabbed by her as well. This results in the other 2 lackeys preparing themselves to be hunted by the Empress. Meanwhile, Fudo ignores Tsukuyo's yapping and wonders if she heard the commotion on the roof, to which she replies that it is caused by Kurukuru, along with the fact that she heard the name of magic bullets from Kurukuru as well. While the lackeys get their shit beaten out of them, Tsukuyo informs Fudo that Kurukuru never got along with anyone but always spoke fondly of him. Following that, she begins complimenting his extroverted personality, only to see him running away, making her insanely furious and embarrassed as the buffalo witnesses everything. Meanwhile, Kurukuru continues to beat her lackeys while Warabi begs her not to. This results in Kurukuru attacking Warabi's eyes so she doesn't have to watch them suffer. All the girls around the campus hear her scream and start running toward her, while Tsukuyo gets ashamed of raising her voice for the first time. Eventually, Fudo appears on the rooftop and runs towards Warabi to check on her condition, only to find the headmistress standing behind him. Meanwhile, Tsukuyo finds Kurukuru standing in front of her, asking if it is alright for her to ignore what just happened. Tsukuyo replies that they were not her friends to begin with, which make Kurukuru walk towards Rin and the others instead. Elsewhere, the headmistress lets Fudo know that due to an injury, Warabi can't open her eyes and reassures him that she'll take care of things, advising him to help the others. Rin and Mary run towards Kurukuru but fail to land an attack. This makes her surprised, as these two girls never work together, wondering if Fudo is the reason behind this change. Rin mentions that even Kurukuru's feet seem like they are made of blades, to which Kurukuru replies that it is a product of her hardening her body. She made sure to turn her entire body into a single blade, which is the ultimate form of karate. This makes Rin realize that she was wrong when she thought that Kurukuru was using some sort of swordsmanship style. She then begins walking towards the little sisters when unexpectedly, Tsukuyo appears in front of them, making Kurukuru wonder if she intends to fight. Tsukuyo asks Nano if the two of them are friends, and after a pause filled with confusion, Nano agrees. This makes Tsukuyo tell Kurukuru that she won't allow anyone to lay hands on her friends while being so proud of being bold and confident. Kurukuru gets ready for the ultimate battle to find out whether her karate or Tsukuyo's sword is superior. Following that, Tsukuyo lets her know that she learned the skill of turning her whole body into a single blade. Even though turning one's own body into a sword is a hard feat, it's unnecessary when one can just carry it. Tsukuyo then lets Kurukuru know that she can't defeat her and would be disappointed if she thinks otherwise. Seeing the two of them face each other almost looks like a battle between a devil and a behemoth to others. Instantly, Tsukuyo dashes towards Kurukuru and attacks her thrice in a single second, managing to deal some damage but taking some damage in return as well. Furthermore, Tsukuyo's blade gets broken, and Kurukuru mentions that it'd be a different scenario if it were a real blade, but the one Tsukuyo is carrying seems like a cheap fake copy. Just when she is about to attack again, Fudo tosses her aside and dashes towards Kurukuru, making her scream his name in anger. In the past, Fudo protected a ladyboy and pointed his hands towards Kurukuru. Later, he got to meet her face to face and found her cute enough that he wanted to steal her first kiss. Kurukuru replies that she gets that a lot, but no one has ever succeeded. He then asks her to look at her hat, allowing Fudo to disappear and appear next to her, trying to give her a smooch but getting elbowed instead. Fudo then mentioned that it was one of his secret techniques, advising her to watch out or he might lick her next time. In the end, they decide to call a truce and become friends with each other. Following that, the ladyboy thanks Fudo for saving him earlier, and when he asks if Fudo needs help with anything, he asks the ladyboy to give him a tour of the school. Suddenly, Kurukuru appears and offers to give him the tour instead, but Fudo refuses as he already made plans with the wimp. This results in Kurukuru punching and knocking the kid down, advising Fudo to only associate with those who are worthy. Back in the present, Kurukuru lands an attack on his gut, which sends him flying, but luckily he manages to get back up as the magazine ends up saving the day. Tsukuyo asks Fudo what made him protect her when the two of them are not even friends, and wonders if he wants to become her friend as well. However, she thinks that someone like him would be embarrassing to be friends with. Turns out Fudo thinks the same way, as he only moved Tsukuyo away as she was in the way. Additionally, he thinks that people get to become friends without even realizing it. Kurukuru mentions how they were friends too, but Fudo replies that now he hates her guts. She replies that the only thing left is for her to eliminate him. Even though Fudo made all those bold claims, he is still clueless and doesn't know how to fight back. He has made all the moves he could think of and they will not work again. If he fails to win, the others will be punished for it as well. Rin notices that Fudo is shaking and tries to motivate him just like he did before, but is too embarrassed to try. She then notices the scar on Kurukuru's body, and Mary lets her know that the muscles that form harness have reflexes, and triggering them would drain them of strength. Kurukuru was making sure not to get owned by Tsukuyo to avoid that from happening. This results in the two of them motivating Fudo to use his magic bullets, while Tsukuyo can't figure out why they are such good friends when they hated each other before. With that being said, he gets into his battle stance and the girls notice that it's a sword stance. Tsukuyo also figures that he is using a sword style and has prepared it specifically to fight Kurukuru. He then runs at her while Kurukuru gets in her defensive stance, making him miss his attack. Suddenly, he appears behind her and gets elbowed, but when she is about to finish the job, he disappears once again. But this time, Kurukuru blinds him with his jacket and Tsukuyo's voice allows Fudo to dodge her attack. However, Tsukuyo holds him at sword point, advising the other girls not to move. With that being said, Tsukuyo begins lecturing him for being a half-baked idiot who cannot overcome Kurukuru's first strike fear that damaged his resolve. This is what allows her to drive him to a corner. Fudo questions if Tsukuyo wants him to get cut on purpose and she agrees, followed by whispering to him some tips to win the fight. Fudo laughs at Tsukuyo for wanting him to lose her life and she says that she'd do the same when the time comes. Afterward, he stands back up again and thanks everyone, promising to hit Kurukuru hard enough for all of them. He then mentally prepares himself for this final battle, remembering the time he spent with all those baddies. Meanwhile, Kurukuru questions herself about why Fudo is taking their side as she is the one who wants him. The delight she felt during their last fight still haunts her heart. When she was younger, everything seemed gray to her and the only parts she cut out herself took on vivid color. However, Fudo seemed so bright that he colored everything she had taken control of. She then wonders if things can go back to before if she cast aside her pride, but quickly realizes that it is impossible at this point. Apparently, when Fudo won against Mary, Kurukuru was looking at the two of them and started feeling a weird sensation in her heart. She figures that the pain she felt that day has plagued her ever since. It was then she realized that Fudo was not a man who would submit, just like how she is, which is why if he isn't hers, then she must eliminate him. In the present, Fudo gets in his stance and begins lunging towards her. He makes sure to expose the unsightly view of his body, but Kurukuru attacks him nonetheless, allowing him to get close enough and land magic bullets on her as well. This makes Kurukuru go flying away while remembering when she managed to defeat Fudo the first time but couldn't end his life. She then manages to get back up and Fudo tells her to come at him with everything she got, followed by him punching her but getting punched in return as well. On the other hand, the headmistress informs the shorty about their fight and she decides to think of ways they can punish those two. Meanwhile, the fight continues and they keep on punching each other, making Kurukuru realize that she wants a pain that'll help her forget what's burning inside her heart. After her next punch, Fudo is about to get knocked out, but Rin's voice makes him pull a comeback and hit Kurukuru with a magic bullet, only to get counterattacked. During this moment, they get to talk to each other, and she surprisingly gives him a chance to hit her the hardest. Furthermore, she is aware that Fudo doesn't like overwhelming victories, which is why he gets hits purposefully. This means he fights not to win but to show where he stands. Currently, she is feeling that for the first time and wants him to finish the fight. This moment makes her realize that she loves him so much that she wants to eliminate him. However, he rejects her confession and ends the fight. Just then, he finds Tsukuyo's blade next to her as she mentions that the two of them can't be friends, along with the fact that his skills are still pretty much lacking. Due to this, she decides to become his teacher and correct him. Fudo replies that she was furious at him a little while ago, to which Tsukuyo replies that she is willing to give him one more chance. When Fudo tries complaining, Tsukuyo tries baiting him by showing the last stamp he needs. Before he can refuse, the masked girls appear out of nowhere and are about to hit Kurukuru when the headmistress appears and asks them to scram, followed by her expelling Fudo. Later, he is at the infirmary with Garlock the Destroyer by his side, questioning how a guy who hates being forced into things accepts her decision so easily. Fudo apologizes for wasting their effort and is relieved that he won't have to wake up to Rin shouting his name. Elsewhere, Warabi is relieved to see that the bear is doing well when Fudo pays her a visit, letting her know that he is there to say goodbye. This results in her getting angry, making her condition worse, and he decides to walk away. He then visits Satori, who asks her to leave as she doesn't know what expression to put and ends up putting a sour one. After he leaves, Misogi enters the room and begins apologizing, but Satori ends up forgiving her. Meanwhile, Rin and Mary try to argue with the headmistress, but she refuses to change her decision. On his way out, Fudo runs into Tsukuyo, who lets him know that Kurukuru is also leaving the academy and is already on her way to the airport. Just when he is about to leave, Tsukuyo reminds him that he isn't allowed to leave the school grounds but ends up giving him her stamp. At the airport, Fudo meets up with Kurukuru and lets her know that because of her, he was forced into becoming Tsukuyo's pupil. She then advises him to do as he pleases, as she will be doing the same. Kurukuru then walks towards him and begins sucking his face, asking him to tell the others that Fudo is hers. After returning from the airport, Fudo meets up with Rin and compliments her for wearing normal clothes for once. She asks if everything went well and Fudo replies that the two of them now understand each other well and he doesn't have any regrets. Just then, Mary appears out of nowhere, cursing Rin for being so desperate to meet up with a guy who is a solid 2 on his good days. She then explains that the headmistress was just joking with them and allowed Fudo to stay in the academy as long as the two of them strictly supervised him. Rin then makes the classic statement about whether he wants to coexist with them or leave. He takes the first choice and returns to the academy where he finds all of his friends waiting for his return. This was all about Fudo and the girls. Which one of the girls is best for Fudo to go out with? Comment school below if you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys in the next video.